Modern Dadhood. Modern Dadhood podcast.
Okay.
That was weird.
Sorry, man.
You want to tell the listeners what just took place as soon as we started recording?
We hit record. We said 3 words, and then my entire house rumbled, and there was a massive sounding explosion somewhere outside. Felt very close. Because
Marc
my house
got up
shook.
and walked out and outside and could see nothing.
Interesting way to start off a recording sesh.
Would you like to introduce the podcast this time?
Dude, let's do it. Because this is Modern Dadhood, an ongoing conversation about the joys, the challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment. My name is Marc Checkin, and I'm a dad to twin... Okay, by the time this episode comes out, twin boy, 5-year-old. And you, sir?
Exciting times, man. My name's Adam Flaherty, and I am a father of 2 girls who are 9 and 6 years old.
Man, when we started this little what is this? A charade?
The podcast.
Yeah, oh, right. When we started this podcast, our kids were but babes.
I think that when we started it, my youngest was 2. Anyway, for our listeners, if this is not your first time, welcome back. If this is your first time, please go back and listen to our previous episode first, because this is a part 2 episode. But also, welcome to the show, and you can hear our entire catalog of episodes at moderndadhood.com or wherever you find podcasts. Just search the phrase Modern Dadhood. So I did a moment ago allude to this being a part 2 episode. Why don't you, Marc, do the honors of introducing our guest and giving a little bit of context?
Oh, I'll do my best. I'm super stoked for our listeners to get a chance to listen to part 2 here of our conversation with Shane Burcaw. Why did I say his last name like that?
I don't know why you did that. That's an odd choice.
Burcaw. We were getting deep into a conversation around IVF, interabled relationships. We talked sperm count. We covered a lot of ground, and there's a lot yet to cover. So stick around. Hold on, I'm just checking the score on the superb owl. Yep, I don't care. Yep, I still don't care. Yes, it's still I don't care to I don't care.
So yeah, so we're
back to you in the studio, Adam.
So we're recording this episode while the Super Bowl is happening, and I don't remember if it was yesterday or this morning. My 9-year-old daughter was like, "Daddy, it's the Super Bowl today," and I was like, "I couldn't even tell you the teams that are playing."
No.
And I was like, "Do you know?" And she goes, "Yeah, whoever, the Eagles and whoever." I still don't know, but she knew immediately. I was like,
"That's amazing.
How do you know this? And who are you rooting for?" "Oh, the Eagles." Like, obviously. Why?
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Eagles too.
I'm not even rooting for the commercials.
Oh, ooh, what a diss.
Oh, and you mentioned the boys have a birthday tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you had a little debacle with a birthday party. I don't know if it's anything you want to talk about publicly in your podcast or not.
Sure. Well, here's the thing, right? I suppose as parents, we all know that once in a while you've got to make a difficult decision, and no matter what decision you make or what options that are in front of you, you look at all of them and they're all bad. They're all bad options.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that situation because we have been planning a birthday party for the boys for a while. It was going to be at a bowling alley, a local bowling alley, candlepin bowling. So the kids can really wing the balls down the lane. And long story short, everything was planned. Cake was paid for. Place was paid for. Invitations were out. We were a day away from it. And one of my sons started puking. Ugh. And I truly didn't know what to do. My wife and I were like, seriously? Like, what are our options here? So we thought about them. I texted you and I was like, dude, what would you do? Okay. But I mean, it became clear the more we went through the day, he got a fever. The fever's a bad sign. And we had to cancel the whole thing. And they were not pleased.
Yeah, that's really disappointing. Really disappointing. I do have questions, but
you do.
Two questions. One, were you able to get any money refunded?
We did.
Okay.
We got some.
Question 2, were you a little bit pissed at him? Like, really, do you have to puke this morning? I
mean, do you want me to lie or do you want me to tell the truth? No, I was not pissed at him, but I was mad. Okay. Even though there's really nothing to be mad at, I was still mad about it. And I went to pick up the one who wasn't sick was at school and the other one was home for the day. So I went to pick up my son at school and we're like getting the, jacket and the boots and all that stuff ready to leave. And a couple of his friends were like, this was a Friday. The party was on a Saturday. And a couple of his friends were like, see you tomorrow. And my son turned and was like, yeah. And I was like, well, actually, let's just hold off for a sec. We'll get it replanned. We'll get the whole thing. We'll get the whole thing back together.
I'm hopeful that when you do reschedule it, both boys are in good health.
Fingers crossed.
I feel like we're doing our listeners a disservice to not get back into the interview with Shane Burcaw because, man,
just get into it.
It was so good.
It was.
When we left off, we were talking to Shane about specifically sperm count because I went deep with my line of questioning about sperm count. And then
you were really into the topic, man.
We moved past it and then I brought it back to sperm count. But no, he was talking about in the event that he and Hannah are not able to conceive as a result of his sperm count, just what other options they might consider for becoming parents. And with that, let's head right back into part 2 of the conversation with Shane Burcaw.
Did you say parynx?
I didn't say parynx. Parynx.
We'll let the recording be the judge.
We are open to the fact of like having twins, or more than one. I think that we both would prefer a single human, just because, we're getting our feet wet into the whole parenting thing. But we were just talking to someone yesterday who has twins, and they were like, you know what? For your first kid, give twins because it's going to be a lot either way. And so, we're definitely open to it.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that, Marc?
Yeah, Marc, how do you feel? Is that silly?
No, it's not silly. No. Yeah, I mean, our situation was our situation, right? I mean, we talked about the possibility also, obviously it became a reality. I mean, we don't know anything different. And we hear the exact same thing, Shane, that you just said from a lot of people who have multiple kids but are different ages. And yeah, it was a rough go at the beginning. Yeah. But I think it's going to be a rough go at the beginning for anybody who's having kids for the very first time, so whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 is where it starts to get, I think, really
3 we might have to.
Yeah. That's a different stratosphere altogether.
Pick 2 to keep and
exactly. Yeah. No, but it's wild when you start getting into the numbers that you kind of hinted at a minute ago. Like, I don't really remember all the specifics either. And my wife would do the same thing. She'd let me know what I screwed up when talking about this stuff. But I remember being really kind of, shocked by, they'll do the egg harvest, which that term too was always a term that I could
harvest.
Harvest. We're going to harvest the eggs.
Sounds like the farmyard.
And it felt very like Matrixy, I'm like, but they would harvest as many as they could, right? And you end up with 13 or 14 or 15 or 20, I've heard, and then once you go through that process of fertilizing them, you really are really hoping for a few, that are good, that are viable, that you watch. And then, I just remember thinking how wild that was, that you start with so many and end up with so few. In our first go, we went through 2 rounds before we were able to conceive. And, our first go was, I think it was like 5 that were good. And then they fertilized and only a few took. And then none of them ended up being viable at the end of that first. And it's a roller coaster ride, I think, is what I'm really saying. Cause you hear these really big numbers in certain parts of the procedure. And then, when it gets down to the reality of it, it's kind of a different story.
It's a roller coaster that costs $30,000.
Yeah, it's an expensive roller coaster. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've definitely. Sure. I mean, we right now. So we're in LA for a few months, just like working and living here. But since our clinic is in Minnesota, we're waiting to like actually do the first round until April, May, and right now our daily conversation is like, what if it doesn't work in the first round? Yeah. Like, it's super expensive. It's going to be really emotional. Yeah. What do we want to do? And we do not have an answer for that yet. But that's what we're talking about. We're also like very open to adoption. We have been from before we even knew that I had sperm health issues. We were talking about maybe fostering or doing adoption. Another possibility is a sperm donor. That was something that, like, at the get-go, I was like, no way, no. Like, we'll just not have kids or we'll adopt or whatever. But as we've been going through it more and more, I feel like I'm, like, aging and maturing rapidly. And, it's just so stressful. And I think at the end of the day, the main goal here is for Hannah and I to have a child that we love and raise. And, whether or not that's from my sperm or not is not the be all end all of why we're doing this. So I've been more open to like other options as we really think about like, if this fails 5 times or whatever.
Bouncing back just quickly to the, I can't stop thinking about sperm health. I'm sorry, I got to come back to it again. But so I'm just curious, is there anything that you've learned, anything that you can just do naturally that would potentially enhance that or improve that?
This is not a joke, even though it sounds like it. But a friend of mine who works in the field of sperm health, which great friend to have in this scenario, said that like making sure my testicles are as cool as they can be at all times, which sitting in a chair where my lap is kind of like surrounded is difficult. They make like cooling underwear, which I've not endeavored to try yet. Sounds horrible. There's kind of remedies like that I don't know the level of success, but the things that I'm focusing on are cutting back on drinking and other substances that can affect sperm health. That's like the main one that I'm doing lifestyle wise to get ready for the big day in April or May. And that's been, kind of a win-win. It was something that I had to do anyway. And this is like a great reason for that. If push came to shove, my meditation, that may be the main reason that my sperm health is low, is I could go off of that for a few months. And from what my neurologist understands, my sperm would return to normal, quote unquote. But that comes with the kind of trade-off of losing ability during that time. And Hannah and I are pretty on the same page that like that is drastic and probably won't explore that.
Wow. As if there's not enough big decisions to have to think through as it is with something like IVF. Right?
Yeah, it's funny when you're like, when you're a teenager, college student, and you think about like what, like adulthood's going to be so hard. I thought of like, buying a house and,
Yep.
you know, but there's like some heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything that we're talking about, everything that you talk about relating to, you know, the IVF journey in Junkyard Mayhem, these are all really personal things. And I wondered, like, does it feel odd for you and Hannah to be so open about something like this? Or is it almost like, is it fair to say you're sort of becoming veterans in like living your life openly and online since you've been in the YouTube game for so long? Or was this like sort of a new line that you had to figure out how you were going to cross?
It's an interesting dynamic because I am certainly more open to sharing my life with the world. Hannah's not. And that's been an interesting dynamic for us from the beginning of our YouTube days. When we began YouTube, I had already been writing a popular blog sharing everything about my life for like 6 years prior to that. So that helped me become comfortable with sharing the intimate details of my life and not letting it bother me if people, you know, had negative feedback about that. Today, you know, we are both like very comfortable with sharing our lives online. We believe in our mission, which is to improve the way that society understands disability. And to do that, we share our honest, authentic lives with people. We believe in it and we enjoy it, but that's not to say it's not extremely hard at times. And this IVF journey was the first time that we really kind of sat down and had a serious talk about like how are we going to handle this? Because normally in our videos we don't like plan out what we're saying. We just pick up the camera and film whatever is on our mind at that moment. But for the IVF stuff, we were like, let's not do that because we don't want to regret it if this is really emotionally challenging for us. We don't need the 10,000 people saying, oh, you shouldn't have done this, you know, like whatever nonsense they'll come up with. So we're being very careful. We are not going to share any kind of play-by-play when we begin. We're not going to like update the world on dates and all that. I think we'll do it privately, give ourselves time to experience it and process, and then document it after the fact.
Such a fine line that you guys have to traverse, you know, because you're, I mean, yeah, on one hand, it's your life and it's personal and it's, like, as you put it, like it could be, it will be extremely emotional one way or the other, because you can have positive or negative emotions. But then on the other hand, you're kind of doing this amazing service for all sorts of people. I mean, you're talking, there's the, you know, the disability aspect of it, but just IVF in general is one of those things that, you know, a lot of people experience, and it can be a scary thing going into it if you don't know anything or know anyone personally, you know, who's experienced it. So it's such good, valuable information as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think about back to when I was in, you know, high school, and I had no idea what my future would hold. And that led to a pretty dismal outlook on my life. If I had had some role models, you know, with my specific disability out there, you know, doing everything that I wanted or that I didn't know I wanted yet, it would have been helpful. So I hope that, you know, by going through this emotional whatever, we're helping people.
Here's something I wondered. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really dialed in exactly what the question is, Shane, but you know, you guys talk a lot as an interabled couple about, like, clearly you put up with a lot of bullshit from people, you know, a lot of, you know, unrequested, you know, opinions that people are just injecting about your relationship, about this and that. And you seem to handle that stuff pretty gracefully. I wonder, you know, when you have kids and your kids at an age where they're old enough to start to understand things like bullying and trolls and things like that, do you think that your attitude to those people will change?
That was a good question. So right now, I mean, the way that I handle the ignorance and the hate, I mean, like, just if you're not aware, the comment section of our YouTube channel is accessible. And I mean, there's a lot of love as well, but there's a not insignificant number of people who believe that our relationship is either fake or that something is wrong with Hannah, or that I'm using her, she's using me. All of it boils down to this assumption that because of my disability, I could never be a worthy partner to a non-disabled woman like Hannah. And the lengths that they will go to assert that idea are ridiculous. So we get it a lot. And that's why it is a kind of relevant thing that we have to think about for our kids. You know, we talk a lot about what involvement our kids might have on our YouTube channel. And, you know, I think we both feel like not a ton, at least not in the early years, because they're not able to understand what they're being part of.
Right.
I believe in like treating your kids like adults, like as much as you can, you know, and I think that being honest about differing opinions and, you know, is important. I also think that like the differing opinions held by the ignorant people that are hateful towards us don't have a leg to stand on, but like I have no issue explaining to our kids when they're old enough to understand it that like these people either have a lack of awareness or education or are just being willfully closed-minded, and that their beliefs are not the reality of the disabled experience or the experience. So like, I want them to know about it. I want our kids to know that like there is that kind of ignorance out there that needs to be acknowledged and hopefully addressed in our lifetime. And with that being said, like right now when I see really mean comments, I like to, you know, argue back and kind of poke holes in their, you know, reasoning, and hopefully in a kind of snarky way get them to question how they can be so horrible to other human beings. I would probably have to scale back how I do that when my kids might be reading what I'm saying to people.
Well, and that's another great point is like, you know, you're unless you delete your YouTube channel, which there would be no reason to do that. That will exist in, you know, 5 or 6 years when presumably you might have a kid who's old enough to read and understands, begins to understand the family dynamic, and that you have a level of notoriety and, you know, have this following and may get into some of that stuff. So that's really interesting to think about.
They're not allowed near a technology until they're like 15.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I have a 9-year-old daughter and one who's about to turn 6, and my 9-year-old especially is right on the verge. She's interested in it, and she's getting into it. But my wife and I have not like really had any of the conversations about, you know, privacy or.
I've seen families that go, you know, both directions way too far. And I hope that Hannah and I can find a happy medium, you know?
Yeah.
There's people that literally don't let their kids have access to anything. And I think that can allow you to grow up with a very flawed understanding of the world. And then people that let their kids do whatever they want. And that's also obviously problematic at times.
Yeah, what you were talking about a couple minutes ago, in talking to your kids about letting them know that there are people out there that will go to these odd, great lengths to put their ignorance on full display. That's such a good sort of thing to keep in mind for all of us at any given moment. I mean, on YouTube in the comment section or not, there's so many folks who are out there that you're going to encounter that haven't experienced certain things and are so unaware of the vast differences of the human experience. And some people are just awful, I guess. And you're never get there's that group, but there's so many of those people who they need to be made aware. Yeah. And we can all work a little bit in some way in our own little corner of the universe to help make people aware of, fill in the blank, I suppose. Yeah.
I agree. And I like the work that we do would be way harder if we didn't know that you can change people's attitudes and beliefs. And that we've had these moments where people send us a message or an email or whatever, and they say, a year ago, I discovered your relationship and I left some terrible comments on your channel. I thought that you were fake. I thought that you were not a worthy partner. I thought that Hannah was faking it. I thought that she was after your money, all the crazy things that they come up with. And then I watched more of your videos and I began to question some of my biases and assumptions and the reasons that I was feeling so kind of negative and ignorant about you. And now today I totally get it. And they apologize. Oh man. And to have an internet troll apologize to you unprovoked is the single biggest victory, I think. That's huge. In an influencer's life. And so, jokes aside, those are kind of the moments that keep us going. Yeah. Because we know that here and there are people that are not, just being willfully hateful, but they just lack experience and knowledge, and we're able to provide that to them. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I just want to say part of the ethos of our show, we sometimes refer to it as being the whole thing is being kind of selfish because it's me and Adam trying to just figure out how to be better at our jobs being dads. And we get to talk to all sorts of people and get, good tips and new perspectives and whatnot. But it's that perspective shift, when you're looking at a problem, this person put it as biases. I mean, we all have those biases, and it's really hard to step out of your little shell or your little world that you live in to challenge those things. But it's it's so integral to the growth process, that we should really all be trying to go through. And so that's a big part of this show is how can Adam and I, and hopefully our listeners and some of the people that join us on the show, sort of benefit from that shift in perspective. And so I just commend you for doing the same type of work, because I think it's how all of us are going to collectively just become better humans as we move forward through the world.
I love it. And I appreciate that you guys are of the same mindset.
Before we close out, I think that I saw, and Marc was asking this, I think that I saw on your channel, and if I'm wrong, and I can totally edit this out, did you say that that there was genetic testing that was done that determined that your offspring would not have spinal muscular atrophy?
Correct. So I am a carrier, obviously, and so my kids will get all the SMA genes from me. But in order for our kids to have it, Hannah would also need to be a carrier. And so Hannah did genetic testing and determined that she was not a carrier. I think it's 1 in 40 people are carriers of the SMA gene. She is not, so our kids will be carriers of that gene, but they will not have SMA itself. And we did that kind of as just an informational thing, like, and people, when they hear that we were intended to try anyway, even if they would have SMA, they gasp and they shock. And that goes back to the belief that a disabled life is not worth living.
Right.
I am super happy that my parents had me. I love my life. And I could give another kid with SMA just as great of a life. They won't be as cool and funny and awesome as me, but they can try. And
high bar to live up to.
That's what it's all about, you know? No. But we did get genetic testing, and we know that they will not have SMA.
Well, and consider like if they did consider the medical advancements, I mean, that you discovered in your 20s that would be available to
absolutely
a kid, you know, so early on in their life. It would be, I would imagine, like a vastly different experience.
I mean, even now, like, they are reclassifying the types of SMA, because if you can get on treatment like immediately after birth, you exhibit almost no symptoms.
Wow.
So it is a very different world for SMA havers.
Also, the topic of genetic testing is just, it's a topic in IVF, regardless of who you are, you know, or what your situation is, right? So that too is another one of those things that I feel like people gasp when they even just sort of they hear that word, you know, or they think about this. It's a scientific process. It's a medical thing. It happens in a lab. You know, there's so many little bits and pieces of it that are probably already just outside of the realm of understanding of a lot of people if they just haven't gone through it or been around people. And I mean, I remember being a little bit shocked too about, like, you can test for this, you can test for that. Like, is this, you know, but it's just new territory, and territory that's changing unbelievably fast. I mean, my brother too. So my brother's a paraplegic. He had an accident when he was 28. He and his wife went through IVF and they have 2 kids. They started that process, you know, 15 years ago. And my kids are 5. So 10 years before we had their experience was completely different, right? Because of the leaps that were made, you know, in that period of time. So that to me, it's just another one of those things that it's like people gasp before they even realize why they're gasping.
We met with a genetic counselor a few years ago who said something that I thought was amazing. And it was that she has clients with various disabilities who get genetic testing to hope, like they are hoping that their kids will have whatever condition they have, because it is such an integral and positive part of their life and community that they feel that they might be disconnected if their kid doesn't have that same experience. And again, like, that makes sense if you really think about it. And I think we need to just be careful as a society that we don't, like, you know, think that we know best simply because, you know, we think that, disability is bad, you shouldn't have a disability. But it's not the case in a lot of self-reported cases.
Well, we will certainly be following along with whatever you do end up sharing about the next steps in the IVF journey.
Thank you.
Would love for folks listening to check out Shane's websites, laughingatmynightmare.com, which is for your organization. We're going to be making a donation to that. Check out squirmyandgrubs.com, which is sort of a hub for, you know, you can get to the YouTube channel, you can get to the podcast from there and learn a whole lot more about Shane and Hannah. And just want to say, you know, sincerely, thank you so much for being so open and candid about your journey. It's been really cool talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I think that, you know, down the road, when I do have kids, you can have me back and we'll have, like, the then and now and the future me will just be like, guys, it wasn't worth it. No, why did I do this?
Why didn't you tell
I
me?
haven't slept in 14 days.
Why didn't you warn me about this? What the hell, guys?
You had a chance.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you guys are doing to elevate all of our minds a little bit. It's a great thing.
Thanks, man.
All right, we'll talk soon. See ya.
I love talking to Shane. I think they're going to be really amazing parents.
Yeah, I love chatting with him too. And regardless of where their journey ends up, I hope that we stay in touch. Love to have him on the show again in the future.
What do you say we bring back our kisses and disses segment?
I say yes.
Kisses and disses. Disses are bad. Kisses are good. You can hear both in Modern Dadhood.
This is a recurring segment in which we read one positive review, right, to make ourselves kind of feel good, to give our listeners, they're new, maybe something. I don't know.
What are you trying to say?
What are we
trying to say here?
Strike that one. Strike that from the edit, and then so that we don't get too overinflated. Okay, our egos. We have a tendency to get overinflated. We're going to read also a bad review, right? And you get the yin and the yang. You get the night and the day. Both sides of the coin. Okay, keeps us on the straight and narrow.
I'm going to start with what we call the kisses. This is a review from Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review, and it's the most recent review.
My goodness, let's hear it.
This comes from Paul2677. The topic is good hearts and good discussions. And Paul says, lighthearted but never lightweight, Modern Dadhood isn't shy about the sometimes difficult fatherhood-related subjects and informed guests they have on, but their tone is always open and fair. Give this a listen when you have a free half hour, and you'll find yourself coming back for both the cheer and the challenge. Thanks, Paul.
That was so kind.
It was really heartfelt.
Thanks, Paul. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling really pumped after hearing that.
I'm sitting pretty after that review.
I think it's time to be brought back down to earth. I have a diss that I'd like to read.
Okay.
I want you to hold on to your pants, okay? Because it's not great.
Okay. I think I'm ready.
Anonymous. Hi from Lincoln, Nebraska. That's nice. That's nice. The show is fine.
Okay. I'll take that so far. It's not so bad.
It's not negative. It does take a turn. But Adam and Marc are just one person, right? Honestly, there's hardly enough personality there for one grown human, let alone two. I've been staring at their headshots for the last 20 minutes, and there's no way they aren't the same person. I can't be the only guy who thinks this. 3.5 stars. There's a little positive uptick right at the very end.
I mean, it's not going to kill our average, but it wasn't the nicest thing somebody could say.
This person spent a lot of time writing that.
Look, I will say
that's the thing that hurts me.
It's brutally honest.
True.
I have to give somebody credit for honesty, but
true.
But we're unique people, aren't we?
I mean, aren't we? Aren't we?
Okay.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening, Anonymous.
Modern Dadhood cannot in good conscience guarantee the authenticity of negative reviews read aloud in the Kisses and Disses segment.
Friends, you've reached the end of another episode of Modern Dadhood. Wherever you listen, be it Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, Spotify, do us a favor. Subscribe. Maybe write a review. Maybe even tell a friend.
You might be a little staccato about this, but I will hop in and say, when Marc says tell a friend, that goes a long way for us. The word of mouth, telling people that you like the show, turns other people onto the show.
Mm-hmm.
That makes Mark and me a really happy guy.
You know, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. Just go to the little search bar, search Modern Dadhood. You can also find us on the internet.
Hey,
Oh, what?
wait.
Whoa, slow down. What?
We have a TikTok now. I set us up a TikTok, man.
No, we don't.
Uh-huh.
No, what do you do? What do we do on TikTok? Dances
We don't
and
do
stuff.
anything yet, but we will be doing stuff. So encourage people to follow us on TikTok.
Wow. Well, you heard it here, folks.
You can purchase t-shirts and dad hoodies on our website, moderndadhood.com. You can also contact us using a form on that website or email us at hey@moderndadhood.com and let us know who you'd like to hear on the show or what topics you'd like us to cover or what you had for breakfast the last several days. Thanks, as always, to Casper Babypants and Spencer Albee for the music in our podcast. Thank you, as always, to Pete Morse at Red Vault Audio for mixing the show, making us sound great. You can learn more about what Pete offers at redvaultaudio.com. Thanks to Shane Burcaw for spending so much time with us and being so open with us. Can't wait to stay in touch and have you back on the podcast in the future.
And while she wasn't on the show, I'd like to let's give Hannah a shout out because Shane is sharing some seriously personal stuff and he's not the only one in the relationship. So shout out to Hannah for being so open and honest.
And Mark, it would be just rude of me to take your final bullet away from you here.
Thank you. Hold on. That was a little thick on the thank.
Take two.
Thank you for listening.